Haga jingmi kebala lai post.
Yero revisited for me. Thank you again. Cockbro.
Our time were meant for students with
Hello to all our viewers watching us here in Shillong, across the state of Meghalaya and beyond. I'm Aaron Lingdo. It gives me immense grief to announce that today is the final and the last day of the 4th edition of the Shillong Literary Festival. I say grief because the past 2 days have been nothing short of extraordinary. Sessions after sessions have been nothing short of enriching and meaningful. Well, today we bring you an exclusive coverage of the final day, and let me tell you, the lineup is again brilliant. So if you're watching us at home, sit back and relax, because trust DD Meghalaya to bring you all the action from Ground Zero right here at Wards Lake in Shillong.
Hey literary lovers, guess what? The Shillong Literary Festival is happening yet once again. So mark your calendars from the 18th to the 20th of this month, where the magic is all going to happen right here at Warts Lake, Shillong. It's going to be legendary, where I'm going to take you and we're going to dive into the world of words together. Now, here's the scoop on one author you have to check out, the brilliant Rupam Kapoor. Not only is he an incredible talented writer, but he's also a senior officer in customs and indirect taxes. How cool is that? He brings a wealth of knowledge about anti-smuggling and tax enforcement to the table. His debut novel, Hour of the Hounds, takes us on a thrilling ride through the twists and turns of law, duty, and morality. Trust me, you don't want to miss this one. It's going to spark some serious conversations. And yes, so for all my student friends out there, listen up, because I've got something interesting to tell you. You can snack your free tickets with just your student ID. How cool is that? Seriously, there is no brainer. You get to meet amazing authors and soak up the literary vibes, all while making memories at one of the most picturesque locations. I mean, think about it. Who doesn't want that? So gather all your friends around, bring your curiosity, and let's make some incredible literary memories together at the Warts Lake, starting at 10 a.m. So guys, seriously, I can't wait to see you here. Let's get our bookish adventures rolling.
The beauty of literature lies in its ability to capture the complexity of the human experience. Through language, it allows us to explore emotions, ideas, and stories that resonate across time and culture. At its core, literature transforms the ordinary into something extraordinary, using words to evoke beauty, provoke thought, and stir the soul. So have you heard the news? The Shillong Literary Festival is just around the corner, happening November 18th to 20th at Nampalok Warts Lake, and it's going to be lit. One of the highlights of the fest is Samrat Chaudhary, also known as Samrat X, the author of Northeast India, A Political History, and The Braided River. Samrat's work and storytelling takes you through some of the most fascinating aspects of India's history and culture. His sessions are going to be super inspiring. So get your tickets and let's show our love for homegrown talent. And one more thing, all students with a valid ID will be granted a free entry. See you all there.
Hi, my name is Meva Ophelia and I'm here to let you know that we've got 3 days until we kickstart the Shillong Literary Festival. If you love books or want to explore ideas in a lively environment, this is the place to be. The festival starts from November 18th and runs through 19th and 20th November at Lord's Day. We will have 30 plus incredible authors, talk sessions and live readings and many more surprises. So mark your calendars.
Thank you. A very good morning to everyone, particularly His Excellency Mr. Firat Sunel, Ambassador. Who is just joined us. You know, there was a short introduction read by Wari, but I think it's so His Excellency Ambassador Firat Sunel is a diplomat, international lawyer, author, and a scriptwriter. An avid reader and also an author. House next month as well. And finally, the book we're going to talk about in a fortnight of publication. Audience may be interested to know that his novels Litfest. Thank you for being last novel published earlier this year by Penguin Random House. And the lighthouse, it does exist. Is from a migrant family coming from Chios, now a part of Greece. A bit poignant story, although it's just just a childhood story. It's a poignant story. We see our protagonist, little boy, lives with two siblings, father and their old aunt in the lighthouse. This is wartime. They are in poverty. They are poor. But the book is called The Happiest Time of Our Lives. Indeed, although they were happy, although they are poor, although they felt the war in a game for us. They established their own life around the light. Don't have anybody else to play with. So the and our protagonist, he just go to the big city, make the exam, and start. For a person who lives in a lighthouse, it's not easy, because his elder brother is sick, so help his family. That's why he even didn't dare to tell his father that he wants to go to the big city. And study. Father that he wants to go to the big city and study. And hard. And in the evening, he is very tired, and there is no light, no electricity. They multi-layered book. There are stories within one.
So much of history we know is, found in textbooks. So much of history we know is, found in textbooks.
And their history books are interested in events without emotions. But novels, in the center, we can find our characters. So they can't be just fiction. But the events are real. We cannot distort or change the history. Like the historians, they also don't distort and change. But we interpret in a different way. So, and then history books, on the other hand, is read by students, scholars, or if you are interested in history, then you read a scholar book, a history book. But, you know, novels are read by everybody. You read, you enjoy, you have a plot, but in the same time, you learn about the history as well. So this is the perfect mixture.
True, I agree. I mean, the other day we heard Jerry Pinto, and I think he was saying that, you know, which non-fiction book from the 19th and 20th century does anyone remember or read till now? But fiction continues. You read Shakespeare, you know, you read other things, and historical fiction is a great way to capture that history, but to have it, you know, in an everlasting format which can be read over time. Going through your book, you know, I understood that the lighthouse becomes a very central motive or a very important theme to your book. Why did you choose that as a venue, and is it only just a place, or is it more than that? Is it a metaphor? What do you want to convey through this lighthouse, and how is it important to, you know, Turkish culture or to the place where you're from?
So yes, you see the photo of lighthouse here, and as I said, it does really exist in Turkey. This is, lighthouses are always mysterious places because you don't know, you don't see lighthouses in your daily life. And lighthouses are very far away. This is not a part of our daily life. And indeed, as you said, it is more than a building or a place in my building. It's a metaphor. It is like a living object, a person, because it is symbolic. Lighthouses, you know, symbolize loneliness, desolation, but in the same time, it's a symbol of hope, light, refuge. So both of them in the same time. So, you see the metaphor in my book very well. The children, the three siblings, as I said, they had a very poor but happy life. And they were happy with their life. But one day, the war breaks out. And then the life of the lighthouse family and also children, it changed. But not only their life. The lighthouse itself as a building, it changes as well, like a human being.
Wow, so nicely put, you know, the lighthouse as a symbol of so many things, including as a silent observer. You know, the back of your book, you start by saying that the lighthouse was a lonely observer as things unfolded. You know, the Second World War was unfolding, people were migrating, a lot of displacement was happening. But coming, you know, out of the lighthouse and looking at your work is a piece of translation, right? You've not written in the original in the English. It has been translated by a translator to the English, and that's why widely accessible. So, what do you think about, you know, translation? Of course, the requirement of translation is very important, but in translation, especially when you translate from one language to the other, do you think, especially in this translation, something has been lost, or has it been captured, you know, in the way it should have been captured? What are your thoughts on that?
So translation, first of all, you know, the translated literary works, they are really very, very important. They connect people, ideas, and cultures around the world. They serve as conduits of, you know, highways of culture. And through this culture, stories transcend the boundaries. So thanks to the translation, everybody is able to read the book. So without the translation of the book, you would not be able to learn about a little boy who learned in Turkey and about Turkish culture. So thanks to God, translated books enrich our understanding and foster empathy. So, but of course, it must be a very good translation. Without a good translation, it doesn't make sense. And I have to admit that even the best translations cannot be identical to the original. But a good translation is very close to original. So, Lighthouse Family is a good translation, I would say. Really, our translator, he did a well job. Because it is not easy. It is not sufficient or enough. You speak two languages, both languages, and I can translate whatever I want because I speak perfect. I'm perfect in both languages. No. You can translate any text, but not literary text, including me. I cannot translate either. Because in literary translations, you don't translate just the sentence. The linguistic part is just the easiest part of the translation. A literary translator has to translate the culture, the emotions, and the writing style and tone of the author. Without this is completed, it cannot be an accomplished translation. And I am very happy with this translation. My translator could reflect my personal tone and literary style as well. I think you would agree when you read this book.
Thank you. One of the themes of your book is also about migration or, forced immigration. And in the book, the boy's parents have to move from the then Greek island of Chios to Turkey, right? And you mentioned about there was some population exchange around that time in 1920s, if I'm not mistaken. So what are your thoughts on that, and what is the historical context? You can just shed some light. What happened during that time, this population exchange that happened in this period of history?
Okay, you can find the tracks of migration in my all novels, not only in this one, because I belong also to a family who migrated from Greece to Turkey during population exchange. Because whether you like it or not, immigration is always a drama. And then this is the feeling of being uprooted. And even when you are happy in your new homeland, the land that you immigrated to, you always miss your homeland. You always miss the families. So, and then this feeling you carry all your life long. So this is in my book, Lighthouse Family, it's also visible. The parents of our protagonists, they are also migrated from Greece. And the Chios Island, from the Chios Island to Turkey in 1924. Chios Island, their old hometown, is just off the coast of the lighthouse. It means they wake up every day and just miles away, they see their homeland. But this is not their homeland anymore, and they are not allowed to go there. And that's why their memories are always kept alive. So that's why, because I belong also to a migrant family, you can feel the emotions of migration in this book as well.
Thank you. In the starting of your book, there's a beautiful quote by Epictetus, right? Very beautiful to share with everyone here. And I think this book captures these themes. The quote is, and I quote, "Your childhood is your homeland." Very simple quote, but very strong, very moving. Perhaps may I request you, Ambassador, to read from one of the chapters of your book where this theme or this essence is captured. This theme of childhood and your homeland.
Okay.
Would you be, pick a chapter or a verse that you could read from for the benefit of our audience?
Okay, I will do. I will read just the first paragraph of our prologue. Our story starts with a photo, an old photograph, and our protagonist introduces his family and those days on this photo, and then the story starts. So this is the prologue, just first chapter of the first book, first paragraph. It won't be a spoiler. Just to give you some idea, I'm reading the first one. That little kid in the front, The one in shorts, giving a military salute. That's me. Blissfully unaware that a military junta would later change my life. My feet bare, clothes naturally a little rugged. Those were the Germans, German warriors, growing a little darker every night. We were in the war too, tooth and nail, if not with guns and arms, certainly through our privations. See that white lighthouse on the deserted hillside in the background. That's where we lived, so far from everyone. None of us knew it then. Isolation and poverty may have been our fate. Yet, that final period of our childhood was the best time of our lives.
I think we can have a round of applause. Yeah. Thank you, Ambassador, for sharing that that moving, paragraph, that verse from your novel. As we understand, the protagonist also, has, because of immigration, and you also have some history in terms of your parents having to move. So how much of this is autobiographical, although it's historical fiction?
Autobiographical flavors are very common in literary works, especially in novels. And my book is not exception of this. Of course, there are some autobiographical features. But I normally don't tell about this. I don't disclose in order not to interfere the perception of the readers. So you try to find which snippets are from my own life and which one not. I don't tell, but as an author, I think you can disclose it.
Let me then ask you, what are your literary influences? We know, at least here in India, a lot of readers know of Orhan Pamuk and other famous Turkish authors. Orhan Pamuk, of course, won the Nobel Prize. Just want to know, Ambassador, what are your literary influences? Maybe Turkish or maybe other American or European writers or others. And what do you read in India? Since you're in India for almost 3 years now, in India, who do you love reading? These two questions.
Yes, I consider literature as a unique assets. Whether it's Turkish, American, Indian, so they all enrich our understanding for other cultures. So we have, of course, a lot of novelists, authors. Orhan Pamuk is well known because he's Nobel Literature Laureate. I started reading with Jules Verne when I was in primary school, and then Jack London's all works. And it started like this. I don't make any difference between Turkish and foreign literature. And I am influenced from everything, of course. Whenever you read something, you are influenced from this novel. And in terms of India, I started with Tagore. This is really, but novels. The Gora, for example, a very good example. You learn also Indian history. And for contemporary novelists, my favorite author novelist is also my good friend Vikas Sivarup, who was also an ambassador and served in Turkey. So his books are very fluent, easy to read, like my books. And then in the background, you learn a lot about this country.
Thank you. In fact, Tagore wrote one of his novels here in Shillong, Shesher Kobita. I think if you have not read that, you should read it now that you are in Shillong and at the Lit Fest here.
I am sure that this beautiful state, it will be one of my inspiration in my future works, for sure.
Okay, that's good. I think that deserves an applause. Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you for your kind words. And I think we are conscious of time. Let me ask you maybe a few more questions, and then we can open it up to the audience. So you wear many hats. You're also an international lawyer. You've written a book on treaties. You also serve obviously as ambassador. It's not easy. How do you find the time to write? I think it's important because we have young people here who are doing other things and we want them to be inspired. How do you find time to write? How do you, you have a routine? How do you go about it?
So we all have time to do everything, but under two conditions. First, good time management. Second, discipline. If you have good time management and discipline, you can do everything. Sometimes I talk with, especially young people, and they say, oh, I want to, have mornings walk or sport every day, but I don't have time. No, you have time. If I find time, you must have time. But the issue is really the time management. And you can create this. Nobody can help you. You have to plan your life. So how I am able to write this, also thanks to the time management, because being an ambassador, it's not a part-time job, nor is writing. So for a long years, I have been getting up very early in the mornings, sometimes 5, sometimes 5:30. And weekends or holidays are not exception. So these 3 hours from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m., these are my golden hours. This is my me time. I can sit, read, write, without being disturbed, no telephone calls, nobody knocked at the doors. So this is my time. So the secret is, especially for our young audience, which are now the majority here, please, you can create. Just set your priorities. If you set your priorities, and then if you manage your time and self-discipline, you can do everything. 24 hours are enough to realize our dreams.
Thank you. I think that's really an inspiring message to leave, to our youngsters. With this, may I open the house now to any questions from the audience? Anyone would like to ask the ambassador any questions on his work, on how his writing is? Do we have any questions, please?
So everybody is happy without any question.
I think there's one, yes. Can the lady have a mic, please?
What is the name of your translator, the person who has translated this?
So it's written here down, Feyza Hovel. She is a professional literary translator living in London. She has translated many works. And then she translated all my works into English. And the second one, after this book, the Izmirli, My Last Love. It's also going to be published with his translation, so next month by Penguin Random House as well, in English. But if it is English translation, I can judge it. We can all judge because we know the language. But my books have been translated into more than a dozen languages. And apart from understanding it, I can't even read the alphabets. Hindi, Malayalam, Arabic, Georgian, Bengali. This is, of course, always a risk. I can never know whether the translation is a good one or not. But thanks to the connection, because I have fellow authors, or I have contact with literary luminaries in those regions or countries, and even sometimes my readers, they reach out to me in my social media or internets. They write, we like your book, but the edition, this language edition was not so good. The language was okay, the grammar, no problem, but no emotions. It was not like a novel. It happens, I have to say this, but it is in English translation, you will not find any mistakes.
Thank you. Any other question from, there are two more people who have raised their hands, so yeah, the lady first, and then the gentleman here.
Sir, I think it's wonderful that you being in your field of work, you've been able to produce 3 books, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
yes.
so
4 books, 3 novels. Yes.
4 books, 3 novels. I think it would be a big help to the young community if maybe you could find time to write about how you managed to do that. I love how you spoke about the me time, the 3 hours in the morning that you use. I think that would be a very good book whenever you're ready with it. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is really very important. And I am invited to universities sometimes to give some lectures or just have some chat with the students in Turkey or in India as well. And each time I emphasize how to manage the time. And I am open, you know, whenever I'm invited, I am ready to come together with the young people and share my experiences.
Thank you, thank you. I think we should leave room for some other event where we can invite the ambassador and maybe talk to youngsters. So, you know, I think, thank you.
We can talk. I will sign my books, I think.
Yes, yes.
It's a backside.
There's a signing stage,
yes.
so there, you know.
Yes, whoever want to talk with me, chat with me, we can talk. I can sign my books, so I will be ready there.
Yes. So one last question before we close the session. So this will be the last question for the session before we, you know, have the author signing. Please.
Ambassador, it seems to me that a lot of diplomats tend to be writers, with India being an example, for instance, Shashi Tharoor, and you mentioned Vikas Swarup as well. What do you think is common between diplomacy, which is all about pragmatism, which is all about realpolitik, and writing, which is all about being a free spirit? What do you think is common between the two jobs that so many diplomats tend to be writers?
Yes, very nice, great question. So there are similarities and differences between diplomacy and literature as well. The biggest similarity is, you know, we diplomats train to use the word appropriately, because this is really important. You can cause a scandal, you can cause a huge problem between the countries when you use just one word inappropriate. So this is an advantage. If you know how to use the words, it is also, you can also use it in literature texts. So they are very important. Diplomacy is also, you know, being a diplomat is an advantage, because the best literary works, they come when the different cultures sometimes clashes or come together. And in our profession, we are going from one country to another country. This is our life. I have been traveling the world more than 30 years. I have been, you know, meeting people. I get friends, new colors, new smells, new cultures. Everything is new. And each event is a source of inspiration for me. So as a diplomat, it's a great opportunity to meet other people, and you don't need to run behind the stories. The stories come to you. This is an advantage. But this advantage is, okay, we are very careful with the words, but diplomacy and literature, they are two different issues. Diplomacy is reality. So your legs must be, you know, hard on the ground. But for literature, you don't need any legs. You just need one pair of wings, you know, which makes your reader fly. And you cannot dream in diplomacy, but in literature you have to dream. So you shall not mix it. We say it, you know, we formulate this like this. You have to separate the inks you write. When I write a diplomatic text, then I use my diplomatic ink. But when I write something in literature, then I use my literature pen. So as far as you don't mix them, so it will be a perfect friendship between diplomacy and you know, literature.
Thank you. So well put. A perfect friendship between literature and diplomacy. I think you embody that, and it's been a pleasure, it's been an honor to be in conversation with you, Ambassador. Thank you so much for coming all the way to Shillong, giving time, and, you know, for really enthralling this audience with your words. Thank you. Thank you.
Maybe we can make a selfie before I leave.
Well, thank you so much, His Excellency, Mr. Farad Sunel, for that interesting conversation about your book. And we are more excited now to delve into the historical fiction of Turkish culture through your book. And we completely moved by your quote, your childhood is your homeland. And to show our appreciation for your kind presence here, we are presenting you with a small memento, which is a collection of curated books and also something special from Meghalaya, and this is from the Shillong Literary Festival. Ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency will be available for a book signing at the signing lounge. You can buy his books from the festival bookstall, and he will be more than happy to sign them for you. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, before I go, I would like to also present a book about Indo-Turkish architecture. It also displays the similarities, the commonalities in Indian and Turkish culture.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue to the next session, we'll take a short 5 minutes break. Thank you.
Renowned authors, the like of Jerry Pinto, Shobha Dey, and Singh Nauturi, and many more. Now let's talk about Shobha Dey. The vivacious, proactive, and widely read author brings 4 decades of cultural commentary to her work as a novelist, columnist, and social chronicler. She had authored 20 books that reflects India's elite society, sexuality, and contemporary urban life. If you can recall her famous book, that is Spouse, The Truth About Marriage, the famous Starry Nights, Insatiable, and many more. There will also be workshops, discussions, book launches, food stalls, and live music, and also special activities by the Forgotten Folklore Project. There will be good exposure, especially for the young minds. So please note that there will be free entry for our students with valid school IDs. So please don't miss out on this opportunity as it comes your way. Okay, so see you there. Kublai Shibon Chi. known for her fearless exploration on India's elite society, sexuality, and urban life. With over 20 books to her name, she continues to fight boundaries. From a former model to a magazine founder, she's paved her way into the literary world. Don't miss your chance to hear her speak live at the Shillong Literary Festival, November 18th to the 20th at Oxley. And remember, students get free entry. Don't forget to bring your valid ID. We can't wait to see you there. The Shillong Literary Festival is waiting for you.
Hello everyone, this is Baipula, and today I've got some exciting news for you guys. The Shillong Literary Festival, Watch Lake, is happening on this November, that is on the 18th, the 19th, and 20th. And this year is going to be extra special because one of our very own is joining the spotlight, and that is Sir Nicholas Akbar. From our very own hills to the big screen, Sir Nicholas is a filmmaker behind Akoni Mantra. So come and listen to one of the most exciting voices in the Indian cinema. And if you're students, tickets are free for you. You can bring your student's ID. So, what are you waiting for? Get a ticket now and see you there.
Hey besties, ever dream of authors and artists vibing together, spilling secrets and sharing stories? The Shillong Literary Festival is back with its 4th edition from November 18 to 20th at Wards Lake, bringing amazing authors and thinkers your way. I'm especially pumped for Sabir Hussain, a former journalist, adventurer, and author of 2 motorcycle travelogues. His journeys from Ladakh to the Northeast capture a world of adventure and resilience. Join us from 10 a.m. onwards for book launches, live performances, and fantastic food. Bring your student ID for free entry.
Video batang na Shillong na wing pa Literary Festival Jan November chicha tariko ni ko tariko no ongen ya ko Shillong Wards Lake ko atangen.
Ya festival mungsumbiga pa author Vikram Sheth Jan asutable bolika ko siachim un baksaba ang nagta sulko mangen.
Uni naman je manderangan lekha kita na disco na chum wa ma chokor en ya festival bakor anak pa mangen. Kala
We will start our next session now. We have now come to our second session titled Words on Screen, Bollywood Meets Northeast, wherein our speakers will delve into the unique narratives of the Northeast and their portrayal on the silver screen. Joining us is Nicholas Karkungor, a filmmaker known for his acclaimed works like Mantra, Culture, and currently he is putting the finishing touches to Markasam, an Amazon show that he has directed. Additionally, his forthcoming film called Jhansi Ka Rajkumar, which he has written and directed, will be premiered in the coming year. He is joined by Nancy Nisa Bezo, a versatile and accomplished film producer working across indie and commercial cinema in India and the UK. Starting her career in local radio and TV, she has collaborated with leading broadcasters, studios, and agencies. Her latest short film, Ade, premiered in Rotterdam and won Best Film at the Mumbai Academy of Moving Image 2024. Currently, she is preparing a feature film set in Nagaland and developing multiple features and documentaries. Moderating this conversation is Mayank Shekhar, the first film critic to win the Ramnath Goenka Award. He is an acclaimed writer and the entertainment editor at Netday. His book, Name, Place, Animal, Thing, was an Amazon bestseller, and his podcast, Sit with Hitlist, and The Bombay Film Story have earned multiple awards. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Nicholas Karkungor, Nancy Nisa Beso, and Mayank Shekhar. Speakers, I now leave the floor to you. Thank you.
You have one? They need one. You need one more.
Check, check.
Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to this special session on Bollywood meets Northeast. I'm calling this a special session also because why have we been discussing movies in a literature festival, right? And that's because I see a lot of young people and we all love the movies to start with. The second is that the basis of movies is the script. The script is the written word. The written word is literature for the screen. And what we're discussing today is how much of that written word or literature for the screen, when it comes to mainstream popular cinema, or Bollywood as we call it, represents Northeast at all, or has it been growing over time? With me, of course, are two people who will know this better than most because one, they're from the Northeastern region. Second, they're in Bombay, they work in Bombay films. Of course, Nancy is a Bollywood producer, an entrepreneur from Nagaland. With me is Nicholas, who is a local Shillong boy. I think deserves another round of applause, guys. There's a local Shillong boy sitting in Bombay, making films on his own terms. I think the most important thing here, of course, is from the audience's perspective, given everyone's a local here, take us through your journey, given that you're from Nagaland, moved to UK, moved to Bombay as well, works with, well, John Abraham Entertainment, among all the other things that you do. And of course, in your case, from Shillong to Delhi, Delhi to Bombay. Let's start with you, Nancy.
Okay, check. Well, first of all, good afternoon, and thank you so much for giving us this platform. And like Mayank has mentioned, you know, literally when I got the invitation, I was just like, it's a literary festival. What am I going to speak about? But it's so great to be here, and it's so great to see such beautiful people. May I add, all of you are looking so beautiful, and all of you are so well dressed. You know, I've never been to an event where everybody looks like a celebrity themselves. So well done, guys. Well done to you. So I'm originally from Nagaland, not too far from here. I've had lots of family who've studied here. Woo! So I've had lots of family starting from some of my great aunts and uncles and my uncle, auntie, cousins. And I never really understood why they love Shillong so much. But now I get it. I really get it. And then I'd say maybe I will be partial, but I think I love Shillong more than Kohima now. It's so beautiful, it's stunning, and the people are so nice. Anyways.
Now that you're won over the audience, tell us your story.
Okay. I started in media at a very young age. And I think it's because I was so inspired by my grandfather who used to tell me stories about, you know, all of us have grandfathers and they tell stories about everything, right? So I was so inspired by my grandfather. And my dad used to work in the radio station as something in the technical field. And I remember my first job in media was in radio. I started working in radio at the age of 6. I used to earn 60 rupees per show. I used to host a children's show. So I would sing, I would tell stories, I would recite poems. So technically, I mean, I was lucky because, you know, I had some inroad to the media industry, but I started very, very young. Every summer holiday or any holidays that I got, I would volunteer to work at the Doordarshan. I would be a news anchor to like very small local news. So I really, really did, like, I would place the camera, write my own report, and then speak in front of the camera, go back, edit the thing. And this was something I was doing when I was 16, 17. I really didn't know anything about the camera, neither did I know anything about editing. But I learned on the job. I literally learned on the job. Of course, like every good child in India, I also studied science, and the plan was to go do engineering or medical. But of course, I tried to get into an engineering college, and I did, but I didn't go through that. I went to Delhi, and then I did a small diploma course in media training, and then never looked back. So from there, I went to work for Discovery Travel and Living. I went National Geographic, and then a couple of, I think, smaller shows. Then it really stuck to me that, you know, while I love this side of media, the one thing that I really wanted to do was tell stories. I was in love with Notting Hill. I watched Notting Hill, and I think I decided one morning that this is what I want to make. And I will go to where this was made. It took a year and a half of...
So, Nancy, you basically saw a blue door and decided to go to Notting Hill and make movies there.
Of course.
That's why it's placed here, right?
Yes.
What, mic's not working?
It's working? Okay. So, yeah. So, I think you can manifest a lot of things in your life if you work towards it. So I went to London, I studied filmmaking, and while I was in London, I think I must have worked on some at least 40, 50 short films. Anybody who needed an extra help, I would just put my hand up and I'd be like, yeah, I'll do it. So I did sound, I did camera, I did costume, I did makeup. I was even an animal wrangler on a set. I don't know if many of you know what an animal wrangler is. Basically taking care of animal on set. I wasn't trained for it. But I had lots of dogs, so I said, no, I can take care of the dog. So, I mean, I've worked in almost everything that is to do with the industry, including I used to read a lot of scripts and write script reports. Used to get paid £10 per script. That was also a job I did. But it was fun. So, I mean, well, that's my journey. And now I've worked with some of the biggest Bollywood stars, including with John Abraham. I'm working with them for some films. Did one film called Tara versus Bilal, but Priyanka Chopra, Farhan Akhtar, Parinditi Chopra, the last film with Vidya Balan, what a great experience. We had a big cast, and I mean, the journey has been amazing. And I never thought growing up that I would be able to do this because I had nobody, I mean, I didn't know anybody from Nagaland who was doing this. Neither did I have any friends who were in the industry because I was training to become an engineer, right? So I didn't have friends. So in my own little way, it's a dream that I dreamt, and then I didn't look back. I just looked forward and kept going. And today, I think I'm in a place where I look back and I smile, saying, it's been a good journey. I
It's
think,
been a great
yeah.
journey. It's been a great journey. In your case, of course, you know, you're a Shillong boy, went to school, went to, did you do your college here as well, Dick?
I did my college here.
Here.
In fact, I was born and brought up in Nagaland because my dad's Naga. Then we moved here. So college was here, and Shillong has been home, you know, for 20, 30 years, yeah. So I'm very much a Shillong boy, and I'm very happy to be here, actually. It's just nice to see so many young people as well, because it makes you so happy that there are.
And you
know,
were one of them at
youngsters
some
who are here.
point in time. And I think Nancy mentioned this when she was growing up. There aren't too many people from around her surroundings that she could look up to and say, use them as role models. You had to build your own career because you were the first people to take this path. Was that something that sort of was the case in your case as well, where there aren't people in Shillong who are making movies, and then you go on to Delhi and then thereafter Bombay. Was that tough for you in the sense of, what are you doing?
Well, I kind of stumbled into it.
Okay.
So it's been one mistake after another, and that's how it played out. So finished my college from here. Then I went to, I was trying to do my MBA. That didn't work out. I was very unhappy. Then I moved to Delhi. In Delhi, I was doing theater. So that was my first encounter in some senses with drama, because I hadn't really done anything in Shillong. And so that played out for a good 10 years. I was there. And then film kind of happened. I was interested, kind of met you that time in 2008. I thought I'd go to Bombay after having done about 10 years of theater in Delhi. And I said, let me just try and suss out Bombay. Went to Bombay, didn't really like it, so stayed for a couple of years and then moved right back to Delhi. And then accidentally, the first film kind of came together. And that's how I ended up in Bombay, and I've been in Bombay since, and I'm doing film now. But I'm happy to be in this place because it affords me the opportunity to actually push the boundaries of Bollywood and have more Northeastern representation in every form, including, perhaps more importantly than anything else, having more faces, you know, on screen. Yeah. That's
so
my journey.
You go on to make your first film, which is Mantra, and then your second film, which is Akhuni, which is actually far more related to Northeast as a culture, because of course it's set in Delhi as well. We're talking about representation. It's hard enough to make your own film. It's hard enough to be in the industry. Do you think it's a bigger burden to take where you also have to do representation? Or is it just like you just go ahead and make your films and hope that you get to make them in the first place, then take that burden on, which is to represent your culture? Or is that something that you consciously think of? Nancy?
Wow, I really didn't think about that question, but I think for me, content, whether it's it's a small content, even if it's a short film or a long form, you have to be true to the story. And while we're talking about representation, I think in the last 6 or 12 months, Family Man has shot in Nagaland.
Family Man 3, right.
Family Man 3 has been shot in Nagaland. They just, I think, wrapped up about a month ago. Patal Lok has been set in Nagaland. So I think India is now looking at Northeast in terms of setting stories there. And I think that's a first step towards how we sensitize people about our region. And slowly, slowly, that will lead into, I think, stories being made completely here and be commercialized for the rest of the country. Same with actors. I mean, whether it's an Andrea in a very Bollywood film called Anek, or whether it's, I think there was a film a few years ago with Priyanka Chopra playing Mary Kom. You know, it is about a boxer from Manipur. So there are stories that are being made. Yes, it has been slightly slow, but I see there is a big opportunity for Northeast to grow, not only in terms of region to be filmed in, but stories to be set here. And obviously that will then lead to stories from here being told to an international or even the national audience. So I think we are going in the right direction. And I think in 10 years' time, it takes time, you know, but 10 years is actually not a long time at all. I think there's huge possibility of seeing, you know, directors from the Northeast, writers from the Northeast, actors from the Northeast being the lead. And I mean, Nicholas is already a director from the Northeast working in Bombay. And I feel in the next 10 years, we will have a lot more coming.
And there is something that you also do personally to facilitate that process of people from the Northeast getting some representation in the mainstream popular culture or Bollywood, as it were?
Yes, I mean, so industries work, I mean, like any other industry, film industry also works in a certain way. You need to have proper representation, whether it's an agent, manager, or a legal advisor. So I've been trying to help Northeast directors and some actors get representation in Bombay. I think some of you will know a very, very good director from here called Mr. Pradeep. So I'm trying to see if I can help him, you know, get more representation. So I'm trying to help people from the Northeast be represented in Bollywood at a larger scale, not just by telling stories from here, but to be able to tell stories of India using that platform. So hopefully in the next few years or maybe next few months, we will see more representation of Northeast creative people in Bollywood.
There are enough people here who would want to be part of the creative process. Nancy, if you want to give your number out to whoever wants to call you and get that job.
Maybe I should just get a barcode with my Instagram handle and walk around and people can just scan and DM.
May I want to quickly answer your question?
Yes.
So for me, actually, representation is really important. And it is actually the reason I'm making films. Yeah, it's not the other way around. And I mean this actually. So I feel, and it's been important all the way through. With the first film, Mantra, we had a Northeastern character. It didn't eventually materialize. And these things happen. But the attempt has always been to do that. And with the second film, Akuni, of course, it was about the Northeastern experience in Delhi. With the third film, again, there was an attempt to insinuate, you know, a couple of Northeasterners. That didn't work out. With the fourth one right now, this Amazon Prime show that I'm doing, just to quickly, because I know we have many questions to get into. It's a show called Ma Kasam, an Amazon Prime show, and it's set in Delhi University. So it came to me, it was a script that was already written, and I was to direct the 8 episodes. And because it was set in Delhi University, it's a story of a 19-year-old boy who's a maths genius, played by Mihir Ahuja, who was in Archie's. And he has a mother, played by Mona Singh, who's quite well known now. She's doing a lot of work. And she's single, and she wants to find the perfect partner. And he creates this algorithm for her to find the perfect partner. And of course, everything goes wrong after that, and there's all this drama that plays out. But because it was set in Delhi University and amongst the crowd, it afforded me the opportunity to actually, you know, insert, in a sense,
in an organic sort of
one
way.
of my own.
Right.
So yeah, in a very organic way,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it wouldn't have happened if it was in Bombay, you know, and so on. So the moment I was on board and had settled in and allowed them to kind of, you know, be more comfortable with my being around and so on, I pushed that agenda. So there were 4 or 5 leads, and one of the leads was this girlfriend of Mihir. And I wanted a Northeasterner. And that worked out quite fine. So we do have in the show, as one of the 5 leads, a Northeastern girl. She's Assamese. We auditioned a lot of people. And she turned out to be the best. So we took her. So there is Northeastern representation in a reasonably big show of Amazon Prime. So those are the ways in which I feel, at least for myself, that I can do something in terms of representing the Northeast, which is the raison d'etre in some senses of why I'm making films, actually.
I mean, it's interesting you say the word Northeast, given, and I'm as much of an outsider as can possibly be. It's my first time in Shillong, but I know that it's very generically used. Whereas Northeast is like a lot of communities, a lot of states, it's a lot of different kinds of languages and dialects, tribes. Do you face that issue when you're trying to explain in the world you operate in, which is just as generic as I am, that listen, there's a difference between Arunachal Pradesh. For instance, I learned from you that the lingua franca of Arunachal Pradesh is actually Hindi, which would make it very different from someone who's from Manipur, very different from someone from Assam. Is that something that you find hard to navigate when you're operating in the world that you do? Even now that I know the reason you're a filmmaker is actually the representation of your community to start with.
Of course, and you try and be truthful as much as you can within the context that plays out. So it depends on what it is, if it's a show or a movie, I'm saying, and it requires a person from the Northeast, and then you kind of audition. It's usually the audition that that decides much of how it's eventually going to play out. And so if you get somebody who's a really good actor, who's from Arunachal, then we try and detail out more about the character, and so on and so forth. So, but that's what you try and do, because otherwise there's a lumping together of the Northeast. And it's also understandable at some level, because there are so many factors at play, especially on a film project, which is an expensive thing, that you don't get everything right. And so once you kind of get to the point where you're about to shoot, then you try and have more of these details worked in. So once the actors come in, then you try and... So to answer your question succinctly, once we get an Arunachali actor on board, then you try and sort of detail out more about where he is from or she is from, and so on, and try and play that out with the other actors and so on. But you always try and keep that in mind, because especially for someone like me, because that's the mantle that I've taken on for myself.
Right. I mean, from the time that you started out, Nick, and to where we are now in 2024, given that there are OTT platforms now, it's possible. For instance, the first time I actually was blown away by a film from this region was Unatha. And this is in 2016. I hadn't heard of the director. You mentioned him, if I'm not mistaken. Pradeep is the director's name. And we were at the National Film Awards jury, and I'm like struck by how beautiful that film is.
I think you should give a round of applause for Pradeep.
Pradeep,
not
absolutely.
Here, but
and
Unatha is such a beautiful film.
It's
a
class
Shillong.
act. It's a class act of a film. But hey, no one saw it, right? Then in the same year, we see this movie called Kotha Nadir in Assamese, made by Bhaskar Hazarika, right? Who then made Amis, right? Which is also about food, but in a very different sort of way from Akuni in that sense. And again, no one got to see it. And that's because it's 2016. And lots of things changed from 2016 till now. You have your Netflixes of the world, your movies of the world. Does that make it easier for you, Nancy, as an entrepreneur, as a producer, that you at least have a place to place it at some point or the other? You may not make a lot of money, but at least people will watch it.
I'm a very optimistic person, and I believe in manifestation and all that things. Let me go back to where I actually started watching regional films. Maybe I will divulge my age through that, but it's okay, I'll take a risk. 1:30 every Sunday, they would play regional films. And I've watched so many regional films from
You're
India.
basically Doordarshan year old.
I am a Doordarshan year old.
Yeah.
I am very proud that I can see a DDK crew here, so hats off. I think it was because of DDK I started watching films and had exposure to such wonderful films from India at a very young age. And it's sad, actually, that today most people just look at very commercial cinema. And I'm not saying commercial cinema is bad. I'm as Bollywood as you can get in a lot of ways. But
You work with John Abraham, for God's sake.
Yeah, I work
Obviously,
with John
you're very
Abraham, so
Bollywood.
yeah. And I work with a lot of other. But I also do other films. But for me, content is the king. And I believe that going forwards, eventually everything will find a space in commercial cinema. But it is challenging. The next few years are going to be challenging. And like I said, Family Man has come to Nagaland, and Family Man 3 and Patal Lok. People will then get to know about the region. Then it's slowly easier to, ease into commercial cinema. Because for a lot of people, like in the Northeast, except for Assam and Arunachal, they speak Hindi very easily. So it's very easy for them to then go into mainstream cinema in a way. I don't know how many people know about it, but I acted in a film called Parched by Leena Yadav.
Okay.
And the only reason why I ended up working on that film, I'm not an actor, I will not act again, but the only reason I ended up working on that film was they couldn't find a single actor from the Northeast at that point, because everybody was busy doing Mary Kom, to be able to speak in Hindi. And I was called to Mukesh Chabra's office to actually say, hey, I went for a different meeting, and he said, okay, we just want you to do a test video so that we can send it to actors in the Northeast so that they know that this is how they need to deliver the lines. And I went full filmy and I did my dialogue, and I get a call after a week saying, oh, you've been selected. I'm like, selected for what? And like, oh, you're selected to play the part of this Manipuri actor in the film. And I said, no, I never auditioned for it. No, they said, we saw your video. I said, I didn't audition for it. But I ended up working on the film, and then when I asked the production why did they cast me, they cast me because I could speak in Hindi.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think Nicholas knows I act. I act, by
Look at
the
the way Nicholas is looking at you. You're going to be in his next film.
Yeah, so
you know,
I-
that
We need
gaze
to have
was
a little
a
tete-a-tete
casting
after
gaze.
this. Huh?
So I think one of the, in Northeast as a whole, and the states are very different from each other. We have very rich, vibrant culture, but I think it's the awareness of where the region is. And because now films, commercial films and series are being set here, more and more people will know about the region, and I think that will eventually lead to us making films from here and going commercial. I'm like I said, I'm very optimistic, and I know it will happen eventually.
But things are very good. I mean, if you look at what used to be 15 years ago, where the Northeast at the most was used as a backdrop for songs. Now it's, as you know, we're talking about Family Man 2, 3. Patal Lok 2,
But also
which I know
from
has
a
been
perspective of actually putting your work out there, Nick, when you moved to Bombay in 2008, which is when we first met, you had a horrible experience because all that we had at the time was you make a film and it has to be a theatrical release. It has to be a Bollywood movie, and which has its own demands in terms of who you cast, what kind of a story it has to be, what kind of money you spend on not just production but also advertising, etc., etc. From there to now, you are a busy writer-director, and that's also because you can make something for Amazon Prime Video. You can also make something for, well, Doordarshan, since you mentioned, is going to have an OTT platform, and your film is going to be playing at the Doordarshan OTT as well. Do you think that has really helped in terms of representation, in terms of multiple voices from multiple regions? I mean, if we can watch a Turkish show, we can certainly watch a show from Meghalaya, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there are no two ways about it. It's really changed the landscape, and because of it, we have greater representation. I think more needs to be done. I had a conversation with Pradeep at one point, and he was talking about how, for instance, Amazon, takes on a lot of regional films, but somehow there isn't a space for Northeastern films yet. I don't know if it has changed. I don't think so. But those are things that we need to work on a little more. But for sure, in fact, OTT has just been a game changer, as you know, for everybody, right? Actors have a lot more work across the board, and technicians and everyone else. So even for the Northeast, there's greater representation now because of that. A film like Akuni, just as an example, came out on an OTT platform. Also, in some senses, luckily during the COVID period, so people had no choice but to watch it. So but all these are good things because it just is out there, as opposed to earlier when it would just be a film that had to be in a theater, and that just meant that a whole lot of good films were wiped out before even seeing the light of day.
Take the example of Akuni, for instance, which is a very specific story of a bunch of kids in Delhi University from a specific area of India, as it were. Did that strike an immediate chord with people in the region where you were setting your characters from? Did you notice that people were watching and saying, listen, I'm seeing myself on screen, and it's not been happening for many, many years? I'll give you an example. For instance, when Rock On 2 got made, which is also set in Shillong, I genuinely thought that they had a great potential because, one, it's about the rock culture, which is huge here, as we learned last night. And it was a movie about music, and it was a movie set in Meghalaya or Shillong specifically. But they didn't care about where they'd set it. It was a lost opportunity. It would have been a sticky chord between people from here watching themselves in a mainstream film. Did that happen with Akuni? Did you get a lot of response from people here saying, hey, thank you, I don't feel invisible anymore?
Yeah, two ways. That, for sure. And the other thing was that there were also a lot of people who are not from the Northeast who've come up to me and said, hey, it's nice to be able to get these insights into the lives of people you bump into and don't think too much about, especially in Delhi, Bangalore, etc. Those comments have, come along where, people have said, yeah, we just meet them, on the street or in restaurants or, passing by somewhere in a party, etc. But suddenly you get an insight of how difficult life can be too for a Northeasterner living in the city, which was pretty much the premise of the story, the idea of the Northeastern experience. So it's worked both ways. A lot more needs to be done for sure, but at least some journey has started
begun
with that film.
Right, right. I'm gonna come back to the casting bit, Nancy, and good that there aren't that many people from Northeast who are actors, and so you got actually a part. But because they were all working in Americom.
That was then, though. I just want to interrupt you. That
Yes.
was then. Now it's changed. The landscape has changed. In just the last few years, there are a lot more actors in Bombay than there ever were, and I've met a few. Just the other day, I met a girl called Desiree, who's Garo. She's in Bombay. We exchanged numbers. I said, please come and meet me. And that goes for all of you. Anyone who's coming to Bombay, wants to be an actor or work in the film industry, seriously, get in touch with me. I'd be very happy to help in whatever way I can. But it's wonderful that there are a lot more people now than there has ever been. It's a small phenomenon to celebrate.
So since you've already mentioned it, Nick's number is
958-220-214. I'm around anyway, but I mean this genuinely. I'm around. Anyone who wants to have a conversation, anyone who has a serious inclination, towards getting into film, you're welcome, because that's what I do. I'm very happy to meet. I mean, that's pretty much my agenda in life, so I'm saying.
That's pretty cool that you're so clear about it. I mean, when you were making Akuni, for instance, and I'm sticking to the casting bit, when you got to be in Parched because everyone else was in Mericom, the big discussion that happened when Mericom came out is, listen, for once there is a film being a hardcore Bollywood film being set in Manipur, it's a biopic of an icon from that place, which is Mericom, of course, and you go ahead and cast Priyanka Chopra for it. What about so many people who are more like Mericom in the way they talk, in the way they are? And so it's like there was a lot of discussion and a lot of debate, and it was seen as something deeply condescending to the region that you will go ahead and cast Priyanka Chopra, whereas there are so many others who fit that bill. Did you participate in that discussion? What do you think of it?
I've worked with Priyanka Chopra, and I think she's a fabulous
No,
actor.
knock on Priyanka Chopra.
No,
I think she did a fabulous job as well.
Also, by the way, I just want to add, after that, Priyanka has gone on record saying, I shouldn't have taken up that role. Much later, a couple of years later or something. But she did.
But I mean, she took up a role and it's really not her fault.
No, but it's nice for her to at least acknowledge that.
Right.
I think that with casting, it's about doing the right job. At the end of the day, you must understand that while film is art and you're creating something, it's also a business. It needs to make money. And I sit on the other side, right? You have writers and directors writing, but I sit on the other side. Trying to raise money to make a film is very tough. Selling it is even tougher. Trying to get people to come and watch your film in the theaters, it's very tough. It's like raising a child. Getting pregnant might not be very difficult. Giving birth to a child might not be very difficult either. Raising a child
I can see the loudest laugh has come from Samrat, raising a child right now.
He speaks from experience, I'm assuming. But he's laughing from experience, sorry. But it's the same with cinema. It's very easy to think of an idea. Okay, it's also very easy to say, let's go make a film. Selling the film is tough. And I understand, as producers, the tough decisions we need to make at that point to say, okay, if we're going to make a film about boxing, and let's say we have to get this expert stuntman from like the US and get this DOP from Japan to shoot it in this way, it costs X amount of money. And for us to be able to raise that X amount of money, we need to present a sort of project. And unfortunately or fortunately, however, I don't want to really get into it, it's challenging enough for us to make films, but we have to then give respect to what certain people can bring onto a project. Like Nick is trying in his own way to sort of get a Northeast person in a film, in a series that is set in Delhi about students. So it's easy to then get one cast, but I think it's challenging to say, if you're going to say, oh, I'm going to make a film in the noughties and then cast everybody from the noughties and sell it as a commercial film. It's tough. I'm not saying it's going to remain like that, but it is tough that way. I'm making an independent film in Nagaland next year, and it's set in 1960s. I mean, it's been very challenging to then, make that film. But thankfully, because Mami gave us the Best Film Award this year, I've had producers of some of the best films in the world asking us, what are you making? We want to know what you're making, and we want to understand how can we be part of it. It's because we got that recognition at Mami. I mean, I could have won something at somewhere in the world, but no, it's because the recognition that Bombay gave us. So I think Bombay, in a way, Bombay is now recognizing the talent and also the region and the stories that is coming from there. And it will only go, upwards and to many success stories from here. But yeah, coming back to casting.
Yes.
It is challenging, and if I were to do a film set in, let's say I have a film set in the noughties about Northeastern people and it's a full action film, chances are that I might take a tiger shroff for that film because an action film is very, very expensive. But things will change if more actors from our region are in mainstream and they can, they work towards it to become, lead actors. Because besides Denny Danzongpa that we've all watched growing, there are not many actors who've been in the commercial cinema for long. I mean, Andrea Kevichasa, who is from Nagaland, she's done a film opposite Ayushmann Khurrana. We have, I forget her name, but there is a girl from Shillong. She's also done a film, Pink, I think.
Andrea.
Okay,
yeah.
so Andrea is a good name to name your daughters. They can go and be in Bollywood. I think we've learned that from this. Yeah, so I think slowly there is that, but it'll take time. Today, Andrea is not because of what she looks like or from the region. She's auditioning for proper lead roles in films. She's auditioning. We'll see how it goes. But there is that opportunity. I'm very optimistic that soon we will see actors from, whether it's from Meghalaya or from Assam or Tripura or Arunachal. Arunachal, there's actually a girl from Arunachal who is doing very well. She's going to come out in this, she was in Badai Ho, I think Badai Do, and she's going to be in a very famous Amazon series, I think going to be launched next year. She's done a fabulous job. And one of the things that I feel Arunachalis have an edge over the rest of Northeast is their ability to speak Hindi almost as fluently as their dialects. That makes a huge difference when you go for casting, that you're able to speak the language of what the cinema is. You can't go and, otherwise acting is a very tough job. I've tried it and I know it's a very tough job. So even though I speak Hindi very well, when I had to go and say my Hindi lines, I was just brain dead. I couldn't remember my lines because it's not something that I grew up talking every day. While I can converse, it's a very tough thing. So I think Arunachal has an edge over the rest of the Northeast. It's just because they can also improvise very easily because that language is so easy for them.
Would that be also the case when you were casting for Akuni, where you have a person from Nepal, if I'm not mistaken, in the film by Sai Gupta, who's actually Bengali, or at least from Bengal? That is just a commercial consideration because that's a well-known actor, and that suddenly gives your film the veneer of something more mainstream than something which is more regional. Is that something that you were conscious of?
Not just conscious of. I mean, that was how I operated because I had no choice. If I were to attempt doing a Northeastern film without, some sort of actor who's kind of known mainstream, it would have been very, very difficult. It's just the reality of things for me to mount the film. So the idea, which is how we're doing it, the notion of being in Bollywood and pushing the boundaries from within, where you kind of, because it'll be difficult to tell a story, your independent film, which is set in Nagaland, something like that, it's difficult to mainstream it, at least at this point.
Right.
So for me, at least, the modus operandi is that you kind of do a film like Akuni, for instance, where you have a bunch of Northeasterners, and you try and you've got to pick your truths and your authenticity as well. You know, so there's a larger Northeastern experience in the city, which is what you're focused on, and you work with a bunch of Northeastern actors. Nepalis are very much a part of the Northeast, so there was that element. But that also allowed me to then look at the option of a well-known actor from, you know, from Bombay,
Bollywood, as it were, right?
And therefore that would give me money to then do it, to do the film. So yeah, that's just how it works.
I mean, we started this conversation with how the basis of a movie is a script, but that script gets communicated through the actors. And I'm just curious to know if you guys ever think at some point in the future, near future or further into the future, there would be a Northeastern movie star, a lead Bollywood star who's from the Northeast. I mean, we've had Danny Densgopper, you mentioned, who's a crazy guy. You know, it's incredible how I've been chasing one man for a year for an interview and still can't. He doesn't care. He lives in Sikkim. He'll say he comes down for like one day to Bombay and then goes back again. He'll say no to movies. But he's actually one star we've had from the region who was genuinely a top league, top billed actor, but not playing someone from the region. He could be a Pathan in one movie. He could be a North Indian dad in another. It could be like a Bakhtawar from Hum in another film. That mainstreaming, do you think that's going to happen at any point soon?
100%. Absolutely. I'm sure some of you are sitting here, but no, I believe that it will happen. We're watching Korean movies. I mean, and today, like I said, you know, there are already actresses from the Northeast playing, you know, lead roles in films. I absolutely think we will have stars. We will have stars that are bigger than any other star in Bombay right now, but we will definitely have. But it'll take a while. It'll take a while, but I'm 100% sure there will be stars.
On that amazing note, I'm going to go to the audience where some of the potential stars are probably sitting, and someday we'll find the new Danny from Shillong right here. Questions, guys? Yes.
Well, good afternoon to all present here. It's a pleasure to meet all the three of you here. I'm Ruchira Gupta and I'm a student from PGT College. My question to you is that the film Kuni was so famous here in Northeast. We have all watched it. How well have you connected that with the mainstream India? And the second question that I would want to put is, what about the rest of India trying to be aware of this film and also having a part to play in something of that sort in another film, along with the Northeastern people?
Sorry, I didn't get the second part of the question. I'll answer the first one, but can you just say that again? The second.
Yeah, I'll just repeat the question. The second question is, how well do the mainstream Indian people are going to get along and play the same part that we are expecting to play in movies?
Okay, so I'll just lump the two together. It's a little embarrassing to say this, but the film has done extremely well. So all the time I do get people coming up to me and saying that they've seen the movie. Perhaps you should maybe talk about it than me talking about it. But the truth is, I'm saying in terms of getting people who are not from the Northeast to not just know that there is this Northeast entity, as it were, out there, you know, in the distance, but to actually know the people, and that's what art does, right? And that's what film does. I'm saying that has happened to a lot of people who have come up to me from the mainstream, who've said now we have some sort of an insight into the lives of Northeastern people. And that's beautiful, right? That's art. And hopefully there shall be more of that. I think as, you know, I fully second Nancy's belief in the fact that we shall have not just a film star from the Northeast, but also, you know, big directors and other HODs from the Northeast. So I think we'll have a lot more of that in the future. I have nothing but optimism on that front.
Any other question?
Hi, Nicholas. There's not been much discussion of the other cinema, essentially of filmmakers like Janu Barua. You've largely been focusing, naturally perhaps, on the commercial side of cinema. I'd really like to know what you think of people like Arivam Shamsharma, you know, Janu Barua, the late Janu Barua, the late Bhamendranath Saikia, so many others, and now we have Dominic Sangma, who opened his films because he had 6 international, to the international films, international film, and he had something like 6 producers. So his films ran first in France, and then through the circuit came finally to his hometown, Tura, where he did, I think, something like 30 screenings back to back, and then came to Shillong. What about the future? You talked, I think, about Pradeep Gurba also, who does amazing work. So I'd like to know a bit more about what you think about these very established filmmakers who've won international awards, because we're talking really about commercial cinema and not the other cinema.
I think it's a legit question in terms of we tend to be very Bombay-centric when it comes to cinema. The fact is you can be making films from anywhere, and you may not even want to be in Bombay, and you could be making it from Shillong as well. And there is a very thriving art house scene that's always existed from the region in any case. Is there anything that you've been personally attracted to, something that's inspired you over the years?
Many films. Dominic's first film is beautiful. I haven't seen the second one. The first one is beautiful. Paban Haubam Kumar from Manipur, again, Lady of the Lake, a beautiful film that won at Mami, Best Feature. These are great filmmakers and have obviously nothing but utmost, respect, towards them. The art world is, the independent filmmaking circuit, as you know, is a tough one, but we've, I think, from the Northeast, been able to hold our own on that front, so I think it's a very good thing. More needs to be done. That's a tough one, always in independent filmmaking. And as far as I'm concerned, because I'm situated in Bombay, I guess that's the experience I'm talking about, trying to do whatever I can from Bombay, pushing from within, as it were. That's the experience that therefore I've spoken about. But that's not to negate in any way, the greatness that exists amongst us. And also the point therefore that I still feel like perhaps in the future, because OTT platforms are so important today in terms of viewing films, that I wish there were a Northeast section in with Amazon Prime, for instance, as there is for films from Kerala and Tamil Nadu and so on and so forth. Those are the ways in which more can be done. Does that answer your question, Sanjay?
Well, I guess that brings us to the end of this fascinating conversation. Thank you, both of you. I've learned 2 things. One is that Nancy is in a movie called Parched, and at some point or the other, I'm going to find you and pause and send you a screenshot. And the second is that we're still waiting for the next star to come from the Northeastern region. I hope that happens very soon. Thank you very much, all of you.
That was such a fun, insightful, and interesting session. Nicholas, I must say, as a student from Delhi University myself, I'm really looking forward to the release of Makasam. As a Northeasterner, it feels so nice to be seen and represented in mainstream platforms. Nancy, thank you so much for sharing your unique insider perspectives on the intersection of filmmaking and our Northeastern identity. And Mayank, thank you for how beautifully you've steered this conversation. As a token of our appreciation for your valuable contributions to the Shillong Literary Festival, we would like to present you with a few mementos. Our speakers have explored how Northeast stories are shaping Indian cinema, showcasing the power of authentic representation, cultural exchange, and the drive to bring Northeast-centric narratives to global audiences. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have a final round of applause for our panelists. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the Shillong Literary Festival. If anyone would like to meet our speakers, and if you have any further questions, you may ask them at the book signing lounge. Thank you.
To do a live, it's a little bit difficult.
I know, it's always the timing.
Right, always the timing.
No, I only once did TV.
Where are you staying here? Which hotel?
Pegasus Crown.
Just here. Yeah. And then it's a nice area in the sense that you can get everything around Police Bazaar.
Yeah.
So first of all, welcome to the broadcast. Let's start with your introduction. What's your name? Where are you from?
My name is Louis. I'm from Holland, and I just came to Shillong and Meghalaya to relax, see the atmosphere, and I stumbled upon the festival. So that's why I'm here.
When did you land?
That is more than a week ago, because I came here by land from Shillong in Bhutan.
Right. So now that you're here, how long will you be staying, and what do you intend to do in Shillong? Any specific places that you plan to visit, etc.?
I intend to stay about a week, plan to relax, try the local food, see nature, meet people, and also see a bit of the city. And I just stumbled upon this festival, and that's why I'm here.
So now that you're accidentally here, what do you like about the place in particular? I saw you taking a stroll around a little bit of the installations here. So how's the experience been so far since you've landed here?
So far it's been great. And taking a look at things, I was overhearing a discussion just now about the languages of India, and that for people from the Northeast it's more difficult to get on the screen because of the language difficulty. And I don't know anything about the local literature from this region, so I'm open to see whatever is there.
Right. So I suggest you visit some of the stalls in here because you will get amazing books for sure. My final question to you is, if you have to go back home, what are a few things that you will remember about Shillong?
Friendly people, relaxed atmosphere, still a bustling city.
Brilliant. Louis, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy your time while you're here and travel safe.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
And a major travelogue, The Braided River, a journey along the Brahmaputra. But what will make this session extra special, I'm sure, is Samrat's personal connection with Shillong, a city that has shaped his outlook and something which will lend a unique depth to his storytelling. And by his side is the incredible Mitra Phukan, a celebrated writer, translator, and a classical vocalist, who also has a personal Shillong connection. Her books, including The Collector's Wife and A Monsoon of Music, transports readers into the hearts of the Northeast, blending its culture, struggles and melodies with such vividness that you can almost feel the rain and hear the songs. So together, let's take us on a journey, let them take us on a journey rather, across landscapes, history, and the heart of the Northeast. Let's welcome Samrat Chaudhary and Mitra Phukan with all the warmth and enthusiasm that they deserve.
Good morning. It's lovely being here on this autumn morning. Autumn is the best time to travel to Shillong, yes? And cherry blossoms are in full bloom. Everything is pink and lovely. So with me is Shomrat, who has really, as a journalist, traveled, but also with the eyes of a real travel writer. So and I would like to, just to begin, before I post any questions and, to understanding, travel writing and India's Northeast, actually they have had a long history, which we will talk about. And travel writing is a kind of a label that has come to us in more or less recent times. But travel writing has always been there. I think it shows, or it focuses on two things. One is the urge to move out of your immediate surroundings, your immediate environment, and see what is happening. And the other is to come back and, my God, that all of that was so beautiful. I must write about it. I must sing about it. I must write lyrics about it, right? Which is also travel writing in a way, in a broader sense. When Hajarika would go to places and he would do lyrics, which are actually kind of travel writings, I feel. So I think the best travel writers have the eyes and the wonder of an outsider, but also the understanding of an insider, right? Would you agree with that? And do you, when you travel, when you have gone on all your adventures, is it a combination of that?
Thank you, Mitradi. So, it's wonderful to be back in Shillong, where I grew up, and to be in Huard's Lake. It's a beautiful place and beautiful time. And speaking of traveling, a small journey, so arriving here yesterday from Delhi, the first thing I noticed is that you can't see the air, because in Delhi the air is like a soup. It's very well visible, and so it's nice that we can't see the air over here and we can breathe it, and so it's great to be here. Speaking of the traveler's eyes as an insider and an outsider, I think the idea of travel writing now and going back in time is that it is somebody looking at a place through a fresh pair of eyes. And so you get strange, perhaps, readings and perspectives. Some of it is delightful for the people from the place. Some of it is not so nice for the people from the place who know it a lot better. But it's also about a different way of seeing. And so to see ourselves reflected in the writings of people who see differently from us, because they come from somewhere else, is interesting. And in the northeastern context, in the context that I am more familiar with, starting from history actually, so travel writing is the basis of the written history of the ancient, like Assam to begin with. Right. I mean, there are epigraphic records, of course, but apart from epigraphic records and the Nidhanpur's seals and copper plates and doobie copper plates. So historical records which are basically epigraphic in nature in one way or another. But then when you come to the written text, the written word, the first thing is Huansang, the Chinese record. And so I think we forget that there was a Chinese traveler who came to what is now Assam somewhere around 640 AD, so a really long time ago. And that our written history draws in the academic sphere from a lot from that first travel writing. So yeah, and he was not the only one. There were so many others who came during the colonial period who sort of skirted the edges of what is now Northeast India, but they've also left records. And so you've got a British and an English traveler who was traveling through some of these areas in the late 1500s, Ralph Fitch. And you've got French travelers. So there are these global records that go back centuries and speak of a history of interconnectedness, and it is travel writing that brings that to us.
Writing as a creative form, travel writing is a creative form, definitely. I mean, it is not non-fiction. I mean, it is non-fiction, but it is also, you can't have fiction, but you have a lot of yourself in it. Exactly. It's not factual, is what I mean. Yeah. So you have done a lot on travel besides your own travels and the own books that have come out of it. You had done the Hindustan Times travel section, and in that, were you focused? I mean, there was a lot of writing going on, but were you focused that I must have more on the Northeast, because perhaps there was not so much happening at that time, travel writing from the Northeast or about the Northeast. Now, thankfully, the scenario is changing. People are writing about Northeast and coming to the Northeast, coming to the hills, and also talking about so many things coming here. But while you were doing that section, what did you feel about that?
Well, that was a weekly pull-out on travel, which used to happen at the Hindustan Times Bombay several years ago. And so I was basically just commissioning and editing and bringing out that section on travel. And the idea used to be that, to me it seems that people think of travel writing in a very often narrow and limited way, but actually a lot of stories can be told through the prism of travel that cannot really be easily told in any other form in journalism. There are limitations of space, of structure, and so you can't fit them in anywhere else. So there are stories that can be told and will find a place and will find readership through the aspect of travel. So, I mean, we were able to, off the top of my head now, it's been several years, but I recall stories that we ran of a tribe called the Kalash from the Afghanistan-Pakistan border area. We ran a piece on the Palaong of Burma, the long neck. And so people going to places and, I mean, not always this kind of thing, sometimes something from New York, a food trail in New York maybe, but the thing is that it was to view it as expansively as possible and allow for all kinds of stories to be told.
Within this ambit of travel, actually I myself feel that, when you travel, when you experience the world, you go for experiences, you go for meeting people, for seeing things. That comes out in different ways, not necessarily travel writing as a genre. It could come out, as a character in your fiction, your short story, or a setting in your novel or something, So I think travel writing needs to go beyond the boundary of simple travel writing, or the recognition should come, and that this is also travel writing. This is also something that comes from, and it inspires people. Many books of fiction have inspired people to go and visit those places. So in that way, I would guess that's travel writing as well. Then, of course, we've had this discussion that, and we agreed to disagree on this. There has been, since time immemorial, religious pilgrimages, which are also, and then, they go back and maybe write about it in little pieces and so on. Pilgrimages and what is called religious tourism these days, which are two different things. You have an opinion on that.
Yeah. So we were talking today morning over breakfast about tourism and travel, and it seems that to me they're very different categories. I mean, travel entails a kind of a personal journey, and especially if it is meant to be a pilgrimage, then the hardship of the journey to me is a very essential part of the journey. So if you're going on a pilgrimage, whether it is Kedar Badri, whether it is Mecca, with whatever the religion, whatever the faith, but if it is a pilgrimage, whatever the place of pilgrimage, traditionally it used to be a hard journey. And I think the hardship of the journey was essential to the nature of the pilgrimage, because it's also a spiritual journey. And now what happens is that people get on a helicopter and they land, and they do whatever ritual they're supposed to do, and they helicopter it back. Well, you have money, you're spending it, you're feeling good about yourself, but I don't think that that counts as travel. It is tourism, and it's basically what you can afford, but it is not a pilgrimage. It's not a spiritual journey. So for me, the hardship of the journey is essential to the journey.
Yes, of course. And in this context, I was thinking of Kamaikha in Assam, where there's a lovely road now, and governments make it a point to have a smooth road up there. But my grandmother used to tell me about the difficulty of reaching even a place like Kamaikha, where people go for morning walks nowadays. But those were stone-hewn steps where you had to
So
go.
climbing up must have been quite a task.
And there were several stops along the way. Now you go and come back within 2-3 hours, right? So the
And everybody goes there are so many temples even in the Kamakhya complex. Everybody goes just to that one temple, and the queue is miles long, and they'll just go to that one place and then they'll leave.
Yes. And also then the other religious place that comes to mind is Tawang. Tawang used to be so difficult. Now there are tour operators taking you to here, and also Tawang. And then you come back. So the spiritual aspect, of course, when you go there is a sense of spirituality. And then, of course, I come across so many pieces written, My Journey to Tawang. Nobody says My Journey to Kamaikha anymore. It's too easy. But My Journey to Tawang, My Journey to whatever places, Sikkim, you go to some beautiful place or along the border and all of that. So that has changed. But when you talk of travel writing from here, and people coming in from outside and writing, and people who are now based outside but are from here and writing, so you have this wonderful book, The Braided River, which is a journey from, down the river, right? And right down to Bangladesh, where it ends in a red light area. Okay, so I had to mention that, right? So then that is a travel journey. And then it brings to mind an earlier journey written by an outsider, Mark Shand, River Dog. So were you consciously not thinking of River Dog because your stories are very different? Your story is very different. Were you consciously not thinking of that book when you wrote or when you made your journey?
Well, for those in the audience who don't know, so the journey was following the Brahmaputra river, sometimes on the river, sometimes along the river, so from the China border and down into Bangladesh. River Dog is an earlier account of a British traveler named Mark Shand, and it's a delightful book. I enjoyed reading it, but Mark Shand is comes from a very different background than I. And so I remember, again, it's been several years since I last read his book, but I remember that early on in the book, he's just arrived in India and he's staying with Maharani Gayatri Devi and planning his trip. So that is not how I planned my trip, and my budgetary restrictions were considerably more severe, and so Mark Shand had wound up at the McMahon Line, China border, following one of the tributaries of the Brahmaputra, the main tributary, and he had a wonderful time there. I remember he mentioned that the Indian security forces were very nice to him and hosted him, and that the soldiers moved only to fill his rum glasses and things like that. I landed up there on the back of a dumper truck because there was no other mode of transport I could find. I had started walking with my friend Akshay because we couldn't find transport for that last bit, so we were walking. And we didn't know where we would wind up. We didn't know how we would come back, or for that matter, how we would go. And we were walking, and then we managed to hitch a ride on a dumper truck for the last bit, and landed up there in the back of a dumper truck. And as soon as we got down, we were surrounded by soldiers who, instead of being kind to us, put us through a fairly rigorous questioning. I don't know if it counts as interrogation, and we were confined to a corner and then put back on the truck, back of the dumper truck, and sent packing. So it was a very different experience. So to answer your question, because my background is different, I didn't come from where he was coming from. My experiences were different, and because travel writing is also personal, and it was my experiences. So my experiences automatically were very different, and therefore the book is very different.
Yeah, of course, I agree with that. The thing about travel writing, there are different degrees of excellence, of course. I find that I'm not mentioning names, of course, but I find that a lot of writing, travel writing, even about India's Northeast, there is an undertone of, patronizing, especially when you meet people of other ethnicities. There was. Now I think people are more careful. So that patronizing tone sometimes comes out, and perhaps without people recognizing it, but it does happen. And that is something I think we all, travel writers, you of course don't have it. And then the other thing is that exoticizing. Yes, you come into a place and you see cultures that are very different from yours, and you can fall into the trap of exoticizing, which you have not done. Tell us about it. That's also because you are an insider, I think. Though with the
I did grow up here in Shillong, but other parts of the Northeast were also new to me. But of course, being sort of from the region, I suppose that sense of exoticism is less. But for somebody coming from a very different context, it would naturally be more. And you're right, of course, that the temptation when you're writing a travel account is to sort of spice it up and to look at the most remarkable bits of what seem to you the most remarkable bits and highlight those, and that is it can be a slippery slope. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, and I find that this especially, when people go to say Europe or America, exoticization is not as much of a temptation as it would be with the local cultures and the local foods. of India's northeast.
It happens with Southeast Asia also,
As well.
for that matter. Yeah.
Yes.
China and Africa and a lot
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
world. Yeah.
So would you say, for me, the broader definition, not the definition, but the broader ambit of travel writing is also writing about food, the food cultures, okay? So you have this kind of food, and then I know people who go to places to eat of a particular dish that they may have read about in a travel blog or something like that. So what is your take on that? You have mentioned in your writings about food, but not in such detail.
Well, Mitradi, you are the foodie.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when traveling, so for me the thing is that my rule of thumb is I eat the local food wherever I am.
Right.
If I'm going to a place, I want to experience what is new and different about the place. If I'm going to go to whichever part of the world it is, and I'm just going to go with people like myself and carry my own food and carry my own bubble and carry everything with me, then basically it means I'm just going all the way there to click selfies, and so that doesn't make sense to me. The idea of travel is to enjoy the experience of the other, so to experience difference, not to experience sameness. And imagine a world where there are 7 billion people and they're all just you. There's 7 billion of me or 7 billion of you. It would be a dystopia. We travel to experience difference, and part of that experience is the food, is the culture. So, otherwise you're just going to take photos. That's the only reason.
Yes, selfies form a large part of travel these days, and also then nowadays we have a lot of travel blogs, right, where people go maybe to Ladakh and they come to large parts of India's northeast, this region, where they come with different experiences, okay, not just food, food also, but the kind of the locale, the beauties of the region, maybe the trekking experiences. I know people who come here for the fishing. I know people who come here and they come on their own. It's not that somebody, a travel agency is bringing them. So then some of them can go back and write blogs, which they do. So that too is travel writing.
Yeah. I mean, the forms of storytelling keep evolving, and as a writer, it worries me that the written word seems to be receding. But it's also interesting how it's evolving and changing in different ways, finding expression in different ways. And so now the form of storytelling might be not even a blog, but it could be an Instagram video or whatever it is. And I don't mind the form itself. I mean, we have a panel after this on oral literature, oral story. So the oral traditions are the oldest traditions. In some sense, we're going back to them. And that's absolutely fine, the way you want to tell the story. But the quality of the storytelling would be an issue, whether it is told verbally or written down in words or whatever the mode may be. So it's just
yes, and also things are becoming, because it's so easy to take pictures, so things, I think, as far as travel is concerned, writings are becoming smaller in some ways, and pictures are taking up, the visual.
Yeah.
Everything is much more visual these days.
Yeah. It worries me that, it seems to me that the human experience of time is changed. And we are now in the attention economy, where every moment there are different things which are vying for your attention. Social media, this, that, and the other. Your phone, which is perennially with you. And so the ability to, hold attention, to basically concentrate on anything for any period of time, I think we're losing that. I speak for myself also. I mean, I could easily read 3 books a week at one time, and now I find it hard to read 1 book in 3 weeks. So it's a it's a difficulty of of our shrinking attention spans and of our experience of time. I think the human experience of time is changing. Time and space. Sorry, because with travel, you know, it's also about distance, and the meaning of distance itself, I think, has changed. And what is near and what is far, the idea of distance is something which is completely different now than it used to be at any point in human history. Because right now, sitting here in Shillong, I would argue that Delhi is near and Domyosiat in Meghalaya is far. Because if you think about the difficulties of the journey and the time it will take, then you just, you know, smoothly sit on a plane, eat some snacks, and you'll reach Delhi. But if you have to go to Domyosiat, you'll have to really slug it out. So.
No, I completely agree. Your idea of time and how long it takes. Because just about 2 or 3 days ago, I was in Itanagar, Arunachal, and from Guwahati, I was shocked and horrified to realize that there was no direct flight. I would have to go via Calcutta or Delhi. So I said, no, I'll go by road, which took me 7.5, 8 hours. Now, as to take up your idea, from Delhi to any European capital would take me 7 hours or 8 hours on a comfortable and no bumpy roads, nothing. So yes, time has changed. Our experience of time has changed, though we are in the same time zone. That is very much there. The other thing is, you know, about these festivals that we are having in our region now. Cherry Blossom Festival, which is where we had the music, and now we are having the literature. And then the other very famous one is the Hornbill Festival in Nagaland, to which many people from all over the world are coming, okay? And many of them are journalists. I met several. Last year I was there. And also travel writers in some way. So what do you think is the role of festivals in not just, you know, bringing travel writing, but also bringing a place to people outside the region? Or even within the region, you know, like I may not know from Assam, I may not know much about Mizoram, for instance, or the remoter part of Mizoram. So festivals, can you give us, and then writing about them?
I think they help the local economy, and they help the branding of the place. So if, for example, now this is a part of the Cherry Blossom Festival, and it is something which is related to tourism. And it's got recognition around the country, and increasingly so. And so I think that it helps the place to gain a certain recognition. And that to me is a good thing. I mean, if you think about it at an international level, it's basically, you know, countries organize festivals also for other countries, and do things which project soft power or create soft power. And so this is, I would say, in some sense, a smaller version of that it's a state within the union which is doing something to build its own brand and its own soft power.
Right. So now we have some time, and then I would like you to invite you to do a little reading, maybe from the Braided River. The portion I like best is right at the beginning, the Dibru Saikwa, that area, and where the three rivers are meeting. I think that's very lyrical, and it's very beautiful. It's my favorite bit.
Thank you. Let me just find the page. Give me a moment. First find the book and then find the page.
Okay. So if you could show the cover to the audience.
Yeah. It's this book. It's called The Braided River. So
while you find the page, if I could ask you, how long did the journey take you?
So it wasn't one journey. I mean, the book is in sections, and actually each of those sections was a separate journey. And I mean, I couldn't do it all at one go because I was in Bombay, and I used to sort of take whatever leave I could, put it all, save it all up, and go on a bit of a journey in some section, whichever section it was. Oh, where is that?
What
bit?
I also like about the book is, the humor of it. There are many, and he has put in history, he has put in anthropology,
haven't
he has
marked
put
it.
in many, and wildlife, so many things, tea and everything. But there is there is a lot of humor in it, and self-deprecating humor, which I really like. So you found it?
Yeah. So this is from a section called Who Moved My River? And it's basically, well, I'll just start reading. We had not thought that the Brahmaputra would be hard to find. It's huge, it's a river, and it's right there. I had seen it many times in Guwahati, where it is a single channel of water flowing between two banks, and the opposite bank is visible. And of course, I had seen it neatly marked on maps. After our first day in Dibrugarh, I realized something was amiss. It was there all right, but it wasn't a neat muscular channel of water flowing between two clear banks. It was this thing that had major and minor channels, all of shifting and varied names and identities. I figured that one of these, the most major of the major channels, was the actual Brahmaputra. It would have to be tracked down. So taking the advice of the friendly smuggler, we decided to go to Dibru Saikhwa to find the river. So basically, I started from a place of not knowing anything really. Like I said, I mean, I'm from Shillong. I'd seen Guwahati a little bit. I'd seen the river in Guwahati, but I didn't see it in any other part of Assam. And so I had the impression that this is what the river looks like. But once I traveled to other parts of Assam, following the river, I realized that, so this is different. Where is the actual river? Because there's no clear, this bank and that bank. It's all rather confusing. So I'll just go towards the end. So we set off on a boat to look for the main channel of the river near Dibru Saikhwa, which is where, in some sense, I mean, anyway, I'll just read. So we are on the boat and we're traveling. The heat increased. The hours wore on. We stopped taking photos. Conversation ceased. We began wiping sweat and drinking water in silence. 3 hours later, we had still not reached the real Brahmaputra. The river we were on had widened, the forest had thinned, now it was sandbars on one side and grassland on the other. We were getting close. We came upon it quite suddenly. It was like nothing I had ever seen or imagined. In every direction before us, as far as the eye could see, there were only channels of water separated by sandbars and river islands. It was a water world. This vast entirety of sand and water was the great Brahmaputra. Here at the edge of the Dibru Saikhwa National Park is close to where it is in truth born. This is where the rivers Siang, Lohit and Dibang merge in the area around the massive river island, roughly 35 kilometers long and 10 wide, on which the park is located. The untidy tassels of water that together form is the Brahmaputra. To think only the main channel is the river is folly. In fact, the whole combination of channels and sandbanks constitutes the river. The river is the sum of its parts, and much more. It has come to be that the Siang, which is the longest and strongest of its three formative tributaries, is seen as the Brahmaputra, but the part is not the whole. So basically, I'm coming to why it's called why hydrologists call it a braided river, because it's got braids of water. The term starts to make sense when you see the Brahmaputra not from a bank, but from somewhere in the middle. Or actually, it's even visible from the air. If you see it from the air, you'll see that it's got braids of water running in different directions and merging and splitting and merging again. Sometimes the channel seems to flow in a direction opposite to the channel next to it. The dance of creation and destruction is visible in the play between sand and water. The fine silvery white river sand accumulates over time to form sandbars, which turn into little islands. Then some subtle balance in the forces at work may shift from one side to another. The water may start to nibble away at the island. It is possible that the island may disappear, or it may not. Perhaps a little bit of grass will start to grow on one of the countless sandy islands. Perhaps the tall kash grass will take root. Sand may slowly start to turn into soil. A seed may float in from somewhere and grow into a tree. One tree may grow into many trees. Animals and humans may one day come to settle. Then, one monsoon day, the river may rise and lay waste to it all. It may start eating away the island until no more than a thin sliver of a sandbar remains, and the cycle of creation and destruction starts again.
Beautiful. This is, I really did like it. Yes, so I think this is what the best travel writing is also about. Not just observation, but also that what you're putting in from your own mind, what your imagination, I mean, a lot of imagination is there. So that, of course, is very much there. Now, as you, still to go on this book, as you went down, you explored, or different aspects. You had the ethnic. You had some writings on the ethnicity of the people. You have some writings on. You stayed, I think, at a tea garden person's place, and then as you went down, then you explored the different aspects of the towns that shaped the character of the valley around it. Could you tell us a little bit about that, perhaps? And how is Dhubri, for instance, different from Jorhat?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know both of those places far, far better than I ever will.
Even then.
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, both were new, actually. Because
both were new?
Both were new. Because the thing is that, I mean, although we live in, Shillong, how many people even go to Tura if they don't have to go? Honestly, because that's how it is. I mean, so within the region, the connectivity from one part of the state to another part of the state, from one state to another state, I don't think we in the normal course of our lives living here, we tend not to go so much if we don't have to go. And so if somebody is going on a holiday or going to travel, then they'll probably prefer to go to Ladakh than to go to some place within the region. Just it's like
from
so
this
it's like
region
that.
to this region.
So it was like that, and so I had actually only a very limited experience of Assam itself, and it was new for me. And so when I started traveling, then I wanted what am I going to write about? And so after some time, to me at least, I mean, I started realizing that I would be repeating myself if I do not talk a little more about the places themselves that are not that are sort of along the way. And so it is a journey along the Brahmaputra and not on the Brahmaputra.
Not only on the Brahmaputra.
Yeah. So then I go and I see the main places or places of tourist interest or historical interest, and I've written little short introductions about some of them in the hope that others like me who may not have gone to those places may find it useful. So.
Yeah, so that is, of course, travel writing of a different category altogether when it is the entire river, a vast river that you are writing about. But it's...
So, the centrality of rivers is something that I realized in the course of the journey. And again, because I started from a place of not knowing, so I don't have a background in, I didn't study history in college. Perhaps historians are taught this. But I didn't know, for example, that rivers were the original highways. And so, in the hills especially, and in places inland, we tend to see water as something which separates. And so if you see on a map an ocean, you'll think of it as separating, right? Creating distance. And even rivers are perhaps imagined in similar ways. But then the realization comes that actually the water connects. And it may actually be the friction, what James Scott called the friction of terrain. The friction of terrain is probably greatest in the hills and in the swamps and in those kinds of terrains. But otherwise, water connects. And rivers are the original highways. So the Brahmaputra is the original highway of this entire region. And if you think of the geography, and you can see it when you're flying from Delhi to Guwahati on a clear day, you can see the Himalayas if you're sitting on the left side of the plane, you'll see it out of your window. And when you're approaching Guwahati, you can look down and you'll see the braided river. And you'll see lots of channels of water flowing in. That is the artery that connects. So to me, it is a connected landscape, and the connection starts with the Himalayas, and it goes in that network of arteries all the way to the Bay of Bengal.
Absolutely. Yes, that's beautifully put. And in fact, you know, because we think of the rivers, the flooded rivers as a curse. We think of rivers, but it has been, and in Assamese folklore, for instance, you have a lot of descriptions of movements. Like in Tejimola, you have her father was a saudagar, a merchant who would move here and there, and you know, so it does connect. And we mustn't forget that the British used the river a lot. Yeah.
The Mughals, the British.
Yes, yes. And the Battle of Horaighat, of course, we all know about that. So yes, and what you said, that also, that, you know, living within, I have found that this is still true. Living within this region, we don't travel so much to other areas of the region as we do to others, you know, outside. So I would hope that travel writings would encourage people to go. People are going to places which are accessible. People come to Shillong all the time from different places of this region. People are now going to Arunachal, but places like Mizoram, Tripura, unless you know, you have some work, as you said. So hopefully travel writing will encourage travel within the region also, because there's a lot to see, beautiful things to see all around, as we know. And I don't want to sound, you know, like, oh, what is she saying? It's obvious. Yeah. So anything else you would like to add before we throw it open about your travels, writings?
No, nothing. I mean, just for the young people in the audience, that, yeah, I mean, it's wonderful to travel, and any which way you do it is great. And just remember to have an open mind and an open heart. That's all.
Yes, and I find that the modes of travel for the young and old have changed. Young people are so much into solo travels nowadays, and many, say some decades ago, women were not encouraged at all to travel solo, and now young women are traveling with a backpack and enjoying themselves and coming back and writing, and even, you know, having selfies. Yeah.
So there is, I think, a certain privilege in being able to travel. I mean, there is a history, of course, of the mendicant traveler or the monk traveler, but other than that, at least in the recent past, by which I mean the past several decades, travel is something which somebody with a certain amount of privilege could afford. And so, for example, I remember backpacking through Western Europe something around 20 years ago now, and being the only brown person in most of those backpacker hostels. And so I think that's changing now. And even, you know, around the world, I think we are starting to see more people traveling. Within the country, we are starting to see more people traveling. So I think that is going, but the insularity that people sometimes carry, unfortunately, that is something which still remains. So the openness to experience, you know, is something that I wish that more people would carry with them